So what caused the Holocaust, and why was it able to happen with such efficiency, with such speed, and on such a large scale? Well, because this just doesn't happen. The Holocaust, where you have 6 million people, the vast majority of them, of the Jewish population, be brutally murdered in such a callous way, and many people in Europe were just shrugging their shoulders over it. How did that happen in the first place? How were they able to round up so many Jewish people? As far as the estimates go, I think it was 11 million people that were able to round up. Somebody might check me on that. But we do know that there was over 6 million that actually perished in the concentration camps or murdered during the Holocaust. And so what allowed that to happen is you had to first start identifying your enemy. You had to start gaining support for your causes. And this is where, in my previous video about Hitler coming through on his promises about rebuilding Germany, getting Germany back on its feet and bringing pride back to Germany, that was huge, because Hitler could have all of these delusions of grandeur, but if he didn't have a massive support behind him, then he would have just been a standard crazy, despicable figure. But Hitler was able to get millions of people to follow him because he was able to help rebuild Germany, and he was able to find a scapegoat when it comes to the Jewish population. So he was fulfilling his promises, finding somebody to blame, and he had the entire Nazi regime behind him to make sure that the Jewish people weren't going to be chastised. They weren't going to be the enemy of the German people. They weren't going to be the figure, the symbol of German misery. And they were the true enemy. That's exactly what Hitler did. He wanted Germans to know that the Jewish people were the main reason for their suffering. And another thing that's unfortunately all too true is that a lot of Europe was not too sympathetic to the Jewish plight. You had many people in Europe that were actually not just indifferent, but willing to help German authorities capture their Jewish population and have them removed from their society. This is especially true in France. This was also very true in Austria, where they were able to get rid of their Jewish population in 1 year. And in Germany, that actually took 5. And so you had a lot of support in Europe for this, whether people want to admit that or not. That's why so many people were able to be rounded up and not much resistance was being done. And certainly there wasn't enough people to fight on their behalf when the concentration camps began and when the Jewish people were being put into the trains and being put into the ghettos. And so that's part one of it. Then you have the second part, is that where you dehumanize the Jewish population. One of the things that gets overlooked in terms of the Holocaust is the dehumanization of the Jewish people, and as well as others that the Nazi regime felt were unworthy to be useful in society. So they were able to dehumanize people in public view. They were able to make women feel so worthless. They were able to make men feel so feeble. And they were able to just crush the human spirit of the Jewish population, where many of the Jewish people started to believe into these hateful lies that they were not worthy to be with the German population. And so the dehumanization that took place in the ghettos, the dehumanization that took place in pogroms, where you had grandmothers humiliated, where you had men shot in cold blood in lines, whenever Kristallnacht occurred and they were, having these riots occur, and especially whenever they had the cleansing out of the ghettos, where you had the Jewish population murdered in cold blood in the streets. This is even before the concentration camps get fully started. This was all part of that dehumanization effort, where it got the German people and the rest of Europe used to this. And so they said, oh, a bunch of people, Jewish people got murdered, a bunch of Jewish people got killed. What does it matter? Because they had already been desensitized thanks to the German propaganda, making the Jewish people look like the enemies and making them look subhuman. That was a huge part in why the Holocaust was able to kill so many and do so with effectiveness. And that is very important to know. This is where a lot of the genocides occur, is the dehumanization part, where you have a significant part of the population that doesn't feel remotely bad about what they're doing to their fellow man.